Hey folks, welcome to the Bass Shed Podcast. My name is Ryan Roberts. I want to take a quick second to talk about D. Lakin Basses. You can customize the bass of your dreams, and each order starts with a conversation with Dan Lakin. Dan Lakin is a co-founder of Lakeland Basses. His new company, D. Lakin Basses, are custom basses, and you can call Dan direct. Dan's number is 312-576-3943. Once again, that is D. Lakin Basses. Customize the bass of your dreams. Give Dan a call, 312-576-3943. To learn more about him, you can also check out the podcast episode with Dan Lakin. Welcome to episode 37 of the Bass Shed Podcast. On the show is Joel King. Joel King is the bassist for the Wild Feathers. The Wild Feathers are based in Nashville. I would like to give a personal shout out to Sarah Bennett at IVPR for connecting me with Joel. And we talk about the newest record, the latest record by the Wild Feathers called Medium Rarities. That comes out November 20th. That was a few days ago. I will have links to all that at thebassshed.com/podcast/Joel King. So you can check out the record, and the record is a compilation of a bunch of deep cuts by the Wild Feathers, stuff that they've had just kind of laying around, and that was previously unreleased. And Joel and I go through the record, Medium Rarities. We go through it kind of tune by tune and get the backstory on it because, you know, it's a bunch of material that was recorded over the course of about a decade, is what I meant to say. So there's a lot of shifts in it, and you can kind of hear a trajectory with the band and when the band was into different styles and going for different things, and a lot of that is emblematic in the production style of the different songs. One thing I really enjoyed about the record is that when listening to it, there's so much different sonic texture to it. There's a lot of great tunes on there. I have some personal favorites that Joel and I talk about. Overall, they gained a new fan, is what happened. The Wild Feathers gained a new fan. I'm a big fan of that band. I'm a big fan of the Americana style. It was a great time. It was a great time to connect with him about the band, his personal history as a bass player, the music industry, and what it was like for them to be signed to Interscope and Warner, just one Warner. What it was like to be signed to, some major labels. They were out here in Los Angeles for a while doing the thing, and we talk a little bit about the Laurel Canyon sound. We cover a lot of ground. We cover a lot of ground about the record and about the band and about just Joel King as an individual musician. So here's my talk with the bassist of the Wild Feathers, Joel King.
How's it going out there, man? You're in Nashville, right?
Yeah, it's going good. Man, beautiful weather. Going good.
Now, you guys, I was at a rehearsal yesterday, and Nashville came up. Piano player in that band tours a bunch. He's in Katy Perry's band, and he was like, "Man, I was just out in Nashville, and they're fully open. Like everything is kind of normal out there. Is that the scene?"
Kind of. I mean, there's no big concerts.
Right.
But yeah, like everything's open besides what we do.
Right. I know, right. Right, which is like the worst. I don't care.
Yeah.
If the Mexican restaurant is open, I just want a gig.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have to end up playing in there. No.
Yeah. Yeah. Man, I got to get my mariachi chops together.
Yeah, I've always wanted one of those mariachi basses, man.
That would be fun, right?
One of those big
Super
tubes.
fun.
They only got like 4 or 5 frets on it.
Yeah. Cool. So you guys, the Wild Feathers have a new record coming out, correct?
Yeah, we do. November 20th.
November 20th. Medium Rarities.
Yep. It's kind of like all of our B-sides, rare ones, and some of the stuff we started before the pandemic, like Medium Rarities.
Yeah, when I was listening to it, it was good to know that it was kind of like an unpacking of the vault a little bit, because I was starting to think like, man, like this production style is all over the place. Like some tunes, some tunes, but then I'm like, maybe they just did it for the song, and then I learned that okay, it's not a compilation, but a compilation.
Yeah, I mean, like sometimes, I mean, I thought about maybe doing it like where it's kind of ambiguous, kind of like Incesticide by Nirvana. You know,
Okay,
it's kind of
yeah,
like a lot of unreleased stuff. But then again, I was like, man, everybody's gonna know these are. I mean, I had a couple buddies like, man, just put it out and say it's a new record. I was like, well,
yeah,
shit, some of this stuff's 10 years old.
yeah, right.
So,
How do you feel when you listen to material that's a decade old versus newer stuff? How do you feel? Do you guys? Well, let me start here. Do you guys write as a band, or you're the lead singer of the band, correct?
well, no, I'm not the lead. We got three lead singers really, and it's kind of
Okay,
like the whole molding behind the band. The fact that we wrote songs together,
okay.
got together, and I mean, we each had our own bands and stuff. And
Oh, okay.
once we started writing together, me and Ricky, like 10 years ago, and then a little bit after that, maybe 6 months or so, we got Taylor in, and then we wrote some songs, and kind of like we were like, well, you know what, we're not gonna do what all our old bands did, which is just travel up and down the road playing for nobody or whatever. We're
Right.
gonna take this to the top and get somebody to pay for all this shit. And so we did, and immediately got dropped. But
Who
and then
was
we
the
ended up
label?
Interscope, and
Okay.
then we ended up right back in the van touring, playing to
Damn.
nobody again. It was the
What do you
it was the
feel?
best thing.
Okay, okay. That your overall takeaway was good to not be associated with the label.
That label, yeah. I mean, they
Yeah.
bought American Idol and dropped the whole rock department. So we
Really?
lucked out. We got pretty much like 8 months of free development. You know,
Okay.
our first record was us like them paying for us to just demo. We've written like 5 or 6 songs and just keep on demoing. And we started a record with Rob Schnoff, and we're like 6 songs in when we got the boot. And it was actually really badass. We got just it was pretty great. And then we got picked up by Warner a year or so later.
Okay.
But and now we're not on Warner anymore. So we've been through the gamut.
What at this point in the music industry and in the society and that culture and your own personal journey of being dropped by a couple majors, what do you feel like the relevance of having a label relationship is?
Well, what we thought is the relevance. What we thought is that we could take as much money as usually, like bands are like, oh, don't spend the money. You have to pay. You don't never gonna pay it back and all that stuff. So we were like, well, if we're never gonna pay it back, we might as well spend as much as we can.
Yeah.
Like the
Get the
sweetest
most out
studio,
of
the
it.
sweetest
Yeah.
gears, because it's they're going to drop us, and we don't have to
Right.
pay it back, or B, we're wildly successful and be able to play for the rest of our lives. So we thought it was a
Sure.
win-win situation going with those major labels, and now in our career it's totally different. We have a fan base that we can play to, so we can make a lot more money without them. But uh,
Sure.
I don't knock major labels at all,
Okay.
but it was a good choice for us at the time.
Yeah. Okay. So you used it as a now. What year was the first deal with Interscope?
2010.
Okay, and that relationship lasted how long?
About 8 months or so. And then we signed in 2012 with Warner and did our first
Okay.
record.
And then how long
Yeah.
did that one last?
Until end of last year. Uh, so you
Okay.
know, December 2019.
Okay, that's a good run.
Yeah.
I don't know that side of the music industry that well. The the
Well,
band
it's pretty
guy like
crappy.
label stuff. Yeah, I mean, that's on a certain level. Every aspect of it's a little crappy.
Yeah, yeah.
um, but whatever. We love it, so we keep going. Um, so that's the latest record is Medium Rarities. Now, um, you guys all came from different bands. What was let's go on your personal story. Is bass your first instrument? Was guitar your first instrument? Piano? Like,
No, guitar is my first instrument, and
okay,
I think I played bass for the first time like probably 6th or 7th grade. I started playing when I was probably 10 or 11, guitar. And then I played bass in church camp. My first time I borrowed a bass from the church because camp band, like I went to like church camp, and the camp like the guitar player was much better than me, and they didn't have a bass player. So I was like, hell, I'll play bass, 2 less
Yeah.
strings. I mean, I had a and then after that I bought a one of those Epiphone viola basses, just
Oh yeah.
because I'm a Beatle freak.
Okay.
But I played. I kind of played off and on in other people's things just to pay the bills or just to play. And
Original
even when
music, cover music, just whatever. Like
both
just okay.
both, and I mean I'm still getting gigs. I played on Miranda Lambert's last record, uh,
Oh, cool.
and so I played bass on that, which is all like hell. I guess the most successful thing I've ever done. Um,
What's
yeah,
the
I
what's
mean,
the session scene out there? I'm sorry, I'm hijacking my own question. I apologize. But like, what's the
oh, it's all
nature
right,
of the
man.
Nashville session scene right now? Like, are they still putting out records? Like during this time, I know a lot of studios here in LA like just ceased production because everybody was weird about being in close
Yeah,
quarters with each other.
I know a lot of people are recording and doing stuff. Some people have masks on and do it. It just depends. I don't think they slowed down for a while there, but I think they're all picking back up. But
Okay.
not much of a session scene for bass players. A lot of people think they can do it or whatever, you know. As far as I go, like I have a certain style. If they want my style on it, then I'll be there, you know. And
Yeah.
that's kind of like the Miranda thing. Jay Joyce, which produced our first few records, he was like, I mean, it's kind of this is a classic Jay Joyce thing, producer thing. He's just like, man, I need like a crappy bass sound on this record. I was like, I got you. And so,
Was he talking about like just like a loose feel, or was he talking about
well,
like
he just,
some
the
old
things
bass
I
that you pull out
do,
of the closet with like 25-year-old strings on it?
he doesn't want, like, like he just don't want me to be too safe,
Yeah,
like, or
yeah,
he didn't
okay.
want to safe, because even when I was in there, he's like, you're playing like a session player, play like you do in your band,
Right,
because he wanted
right.
a band feel, and the other players are awesome dudes, and so, yeah, it's kind of like I do this. If I'm playing with somebody else, I'm not gonna ham it up and do all that,
Sure.
I can keep it straight laced. But then he's like, no, go ahead and just let it rip the knob off. And I was like, all right,
Okay.
here we
Sweet.
go.
Yeah.
But yeah, and my tone, I played that same bass, my Harmony H22 on every song, and
Nice.
then on the other record right before that, Lainey Wilson, this other girl, I did the same thing. Like it's just kind of like became my sound, and
Okay.
it's pretty much a McCartney ripoff, the thumpy kind of
Yeah.
60s sound,
You got a pick? You going in with a pick on that?
Yeah, well, shit. You know what? I don't. I mean, most of the time, but that's just because of Jay. I
Okay.
when I was like when we first started the Wild Feathers, we were just guitar players, and we're like, oh, we'll just hire a bass and drum or whatever. We started playing, and we couldn't afford anybody since we weren't on a label or anything. So it
Yeah.
was like, all right, I've got a bass. I've played bass in 3 or 4 other projects. I'll just play bass live, and and so like I'm gonna do it right, play with my fingers. I'm doing all this stuff, but then in the studio, most of the first records play with my fingers. But then in the studio, Jay was like, it just sounds better when you're plucking with that pick and doing
Okay.
that thing. So I was like, yeah, but my bass player friends are gonna see me play.
Yeah. I'm gonna lose street cred with the bass guys. That's
Exactly. Yeah, I
hilarious.
didn't want. I gotta look like a real deal here. And
Yeah.
but then I start justifying it, saying like, oh, different JPJ and those other guys play the pick every now and then, and all that. So I was like, all right, cool.
Man,
So I
it's
just
a
kind of went with
thing.
the sound.
Yeah, it's a thing. I know I've done sessions, and the producer engineer will be like, "All right, cool, but now I want you to use a pick," and I'm just like,
Yeah. But this is bass. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I'm just like, well, dude, like, why don't I just cut all the ones that are not pick, and then like you get a pick
Yeah.
guy. Like I'm not, but I'd give it a go in the studio. The only time I've ever played with one is on records, and I had to sit with it for a minute and try to figure this thing out. There's a lot of punches on some of those tracks because it wasn't responding the same and all this.
Yeah.
Hat, my hat goes off. The guys that work that out because it is a sound. It's a specific sound. Like playing slap
Yeah.
bass or something. You get another sound out of the instrument. and
Yeah,
there's a
for
technique
sure.
to it for sure. So all good, all good. I think real dudes, not real dudes. That's maybe wrong. I don't think like pick guys should be alienated or vilified
Yeah.
for using a pick. It's I can't do it. I can't do
Yeah.
it. I'm not a pick guy.
Well, when I first started playing, what I had a problem with was, well, I was playing with the other buddies, and even when I play with like a country act, I mean, I love doing like you're playing with just, especially when something's like boom, do 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 like
Yeah,
that, playing not because I'm used to like strumming a guitar, you're playing with that snare, pop
yeah.
pop, and then the bass, you're playing with the kick, and but I was singing, so it was like shit. I had to do like band rehearse, like I mean like high school band rehearsal type thing for myself, like practice singing and playing with the kick. It's like I can play
Okay.
fast songs, slow songs, anything, but the mid tempo like kind of country type songs were really
Yeah.
tough to sing and play when I first started. It's kind of like like rubbing your stomach and patting your head
Sure.
type thing, because I'm used to staying on the snare with the guitar, but
Right.
yeah, that's the only thing that was really kind of tough. We call it. You guys call it eating shit when you go like doonch 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 doonch. We call it eating shit in Nashville.
Okay. Okay. I don't think there's enough of that work out here in LA to even have a term for it. Like,
Yeah,
there's not even enough of that. Uh,
it's
yeah.
probably not a whole lot of bass doing that in LA. I don't think.
There's
Just
not a lot of
boom
country
boom
bass. I did.
boom 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 boom.
I played a lot of country when I lived in Arizona.
Oh yeah.
Like that was my main gig for a while. Was just being in a country cover band, and with the guys that were good. Like the lead singer, fiddle player went out to Nashville for a while and had a couple big touring gigs. Um, Guitar player still in Phoenix. I think the drummer. I don't know what happened to the drummer actually.
Yeah.
But it was a good country band, and it was. I like playing that stuff when dudes know that style. Like I really like playing
Oh
that stuff.
yeah. Well, see, I didn't know jack shit about country until I moved out here. Really, I mean, I'm from Oklahoma originally,
Okay.
but still, like, I mean, hell, I was raised on like 60s, 70s classic rock, and then once the wave of like the 90s, that was like my era of
Okay.
learning music. So
Okay.
I didn't know anything about it, but I got a gig with my buddy. His name's Tennessee Jet, and we went out to Nevada and played. It was 6 45-minute sets a night at this
Oh my gosh.
casino, and
It's
uh,
a
and I played
marathon.
bass. So yeah, so it was 70 something songs every night, and I didn't know any. I didn't know hardly any like Haggard or George Strait or any of the stuff we were playing, but
Okay.
we'd play like Mama Tried, and
Yeah,
I
yeah.
only knew. I knew like the I me and it was me and my old band or some of my old bandmates as his backup band, and we would play like the Grateful Dead version. He didn't care how we played it as long as we got paid.
Okay.
But we were
Yeah.
like, so it was like all halftime. They're like just all everything's like jamming halftime on most of these country
Yeah, yeah.
songs. People hated it, but but it was fun. It cut my teeth really a whole lot on bass because I played like, I mean, that was 2 weeks of 70 something songs a night,
Yeah.
and that was uh yeah, kind of got me real comfortable with it.
Yeah, uh I think that genre of music, playing country bass, is really I think everybody should kind of check it out a little bit because you have to be so meticulous about the fundamentals. Like, if you're doing a train groove or a two beat, like you have to be just a little bit on top, and it's gotta sit right there, and your note can only go so long, otherwise the whole groove's gonna go to hell.
Oh yeah,
If the note's too long, or does it speak properly if the note's too short? So like all these really minute details of the
yeah.
absolute basics of note production and note duration are huge. And
It's way beat oriented too. Like you're really beating it opposed to just like do do do.
yeah,
It's a lot of like do 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 do. Like kind of that kind of
right,
thing.
right.
But as long as you
Back,
like, it is fun because you can kind of just trail. Like I mean, if you know the scales, and you know what notes you can hit.
yeah,
It's major, minor, and all that shit. Then you know where you can go and where you can't. And
it's not highly academic. It's not
yeah,
it's not
once you
highly
got it, you
academic at
kind
all.
of got it.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Back to the record. So, you guys wrote all these. This okay. I got notes. I listened to the record, and I took notes on everything I was hearing, and I was looking. I was really looking to connect with the material, to get inside of it and see what was going on in there. And not gonna lie, there's some tunes I don't know if I ever really got, and I want to talk to you about those.
Okay.
The first song is on the record is Blue, and I listened to this a bunch, and I can't quite tell where the narrative's going.
Well, that's a cover. It's a cover by the Jayhawks.
Okay, I don't know the
And
original then.
well, the original, yeah, I don't know what that song's about. I just thought
Okay,
we just thought it
thank you,
felt good,
thank you.
and
Okay, good pause.
it has a it has the double vocal thing that we were really trying to hone in on,
Okay,
and so we were just, it was like mainly harmony driven and everything, and it's just a good cover that we always loved, and yeah, I mean, we just always liked that song, and some songs, man, I don't know what Free Falling's about, but I fucking love it, like.
sure.
So some songs are like that. I mean, for us,
Yeah, I
we're
don't
not
know.
hardcore stickers about that kind of thing.
I didn't know what the tune was about, and I was just curious because I would go back and I'm like, all right, well, it seems like it's going this way. Then all of a sudden the rug gets pulled out of that idea, and they're like, huh. Now where are we at? Is this going to circle back around on itself? I didn't even know it was a cover.
Oh yeah, it came out in like 94, 95.
Just talking through the playlist of the record, we got a tune called Heartbreak. That's kind of a literal tune.
Yeah,
Felt like
that's us
that
trying to
one
be Tom
wasn't
Petty or
cryptic.
something.
Okay, yeah, that was my note. It's just like in parentheses Tom Petty. Uh,
Yeah.
but it's cool.
Yeah,
It's
I
cool.
don't
And like,
shy away from it. Like on one of our other records, we got like a complete rip of like we went through like the E minor A major thing. It's like this sounds just like fucking Pink Floyd. We're like, yeah,
yeah,
it does. Let's do it.
yeah.
Like
Why
opposed
not?
to don't do it. And they're like, well, we like Pink Floyd, so fuck it, let's do it.
Next tune on the record is
So yeah.
Marie. This is probably my favorite tune on the record. I really like
Oh
Marie.
yeah.
I love the melody on it. I like how the guitar comes in, like with the melody is the hook. Um, yeah, big fan of that tune. What's the backstory there?
That's a tune Ricky, my bandmate, wrote, and I put my fingers on that one because it because it warranted it. Uh, but yeah, what's funny is like we just recorded that like you know half a day. It was really
Oh,
really
really?
simple, and
Okay.
I think the reason that didn't go on a record is because it was on our first record. We had like four songs that sounded kind of just like it or
Okay.
similar to it, and so we're just, well, we'll save that for soundtrack or some other thing or whatever, and then just never put it out for anything. So
Yeah, no, I really like that one. So how far back? How far back is that? Like, what year would you?
that's 2012.
That's 2012. Okay.
Yeah, that record came out in 2013, but yeah, 2012 is when we recorded it.
There's a lot of cool things going on in that tune. I felt this kind of like late 60s, early 60s, late 50s, early 60s kind of feel to it.
Yeah.
It had like they're using kind of like a lot of innocent Americana themes like green grass, with a
Oh yeah.
daddy's guitar, American flag. But it also reminded me of the old 97s. You
Oh
know this
shit.
band?
Yeah. Yeah.
And because the lyrically, it's like, okay, it's not as happy as the music suggests it would be. Like the music is super feel good.
Yeah.
The song isn't as feel good, and I don't really know what the aim in that is. It's kind of about maybe a legacy. I don't know what the songwriter was going for in that one.
Ricky does a lot of stream of conscious type stuff.
Okay,
I'm not sure,
yeah,
but
it has that feel for sure.
but
Just kind of like a
just kind
big,
of like a looking back type thing. It's a lot of
yeah,
but I always love is it the like the slide thing, like it was like an old like
yeah.
Supro cool, I don't know, just a cool slide thing kind of. I thought that intro was
I
really
love
on
that.
point.
Like that just
Yeah.
sets the tone for the whole. Like, yeah, I'm in this, and you're in any town, USA, and it's a barbecue. Like it's amazing.
Yeah, because like we have a lot of, I mean, every time we have songs there's about 15 to 1 it's going to be like 120 BPMs swinging type song like that. For we
Yeah,
have like 10 of those or 15 of those to every one like heartbreak or rock song or something like that. We
Okay.
have, yeah, that's our wheelhouse and everything.
Yeah.
That's what
No,
comes naturally to us.
I like that, and like I love the old '97, so that was meant as
Oh
a
yeah, dude, they're fucking great.
compliment. Like I love that band, and I'm always surprised at who does know of them and who doesn't.
Oh yeah,
Because
well,
to me they're kind of a big deal, but then I'll tell like, no man, that reminds me of whatever this song. They're like, oh, I've never heard of them. Like, pull it up. I'm like, oh, like how do you not know? Like, huh.
yeah, dude.
All right, they're fantastic. Going down the playlist, I think Almost Cut My Hair is next in line. When I I pulled up the link that I was sent, and I'm reading down the song titles. My first response when I saw this title was like, really? That's where we're at with song title? Like
Oh yeah,
it's not even about the haircut. He's not even writing about a haircut, which is not necessarily a monumental thing in and of itself. It's talking about the possibility of a haircut. Like, huh. So that was
it's
the first tune I listened to actually, because I had to know what was going on with that.
well, you do you know the original song?
Is that a cover too?
That's we have three covers on the record. That's
Okay,
Blue,
let's
Almost
get
Cut My
those out of the
Hair.
way so I quit sounding like an asshole.
Well, and
What
then
was the next one?
no, it's a Crazy Stills Nash and Young song.
Oh, okay.
And that was done. We wouldn't have picked that song, but when we were on Interscope doing demos, uh, we recorded that at Sound City before Grohl
Okay.
took the board and everything. But we recorded that because Jimmy Iovine, who's on head of Interscope, ended up dropping
Yeah.
us. Is because he wanted us to do that song. We're like, of all the Crazy Stills Nash and Young songs, because we were kind of like really in that mode of Laurel Canyon type sound. And he was like, of all the songs, that motherfucker. But I was like, whatever it takes to get us this fucking record deal, we'll do it.
Yeah,
And
right on.
and then so yeah, it was kind of like it's one of their cheesiest songs. But we thought I was like, man, I fucking love the guitar solo and it's okay. I mean, how many songs are that kind of like that A minor G D like kind of thing, you know?
Yeah.
Last
Right.
Dance or whatever, you know? It's
Yeah,
so
right.
we did it and we've always had it around and so like, well, it's a great recording and whatnot, so we put it on there.
What was Jimmy's idea for that one specifically? Did he have a? Did he just want to be kind of like, let's just throw this at him because it's no one sees
Well,
it coming?
well, I don't know if he ever even wanted to put it out. They just asked us to do. We did Blue and Almost Cut My Hair at the same session, and
Okay.
we picked like we went to hear a cover with you guys singing and harmonizing, and like, oh great, we're gonna do Blue because that song's great, and
Yeah.
and if anybody ever thought we wrote it, then we'd be really proud of it. Like,
Sure.
man, that's a great song. But then he's like, well, can you do a Christ Still Nash and Young song? We're like, oh yeah, we'll do like I don't know, uh, Woodstock or Deja Vu or something, or uh, Sweet Judy Blue Eyes or something. He's like,
Yeah.
Almost Cut My Hair. We're like, oh god. We're like, all right, I know it. I'll sing it, whatever. And and so we just did it. It was like this ain't bad, but yeah, we didn't really pick that song.
Okay. Then what's the third cover?
Yeah, the other cover was Guitar Man, and that's by Bread.
Okay.
Um, classic '70s song, but we did that as a B-side or on our last record. We're like, uh, we thought it was cool, and it's kind of a cool concept, and like, cause it's funny because there's just not that many guitar men now. Like back in the day, everybody played guitar, and everybody's kind of doing
Sure.
this profession, and now there's hardly. If you're a musician, you're most likely not a guitar player.
No,
You're
like
most
you're
likely,
right. Like you're a producer. Like
or yeah,
that's
you
probably
got a computer. That's about it.
yeah,
So
exactly right. Right. You got some kind of interface and a laptop.
yeah,
But that's not as catchy of a song title.
yeah, I know. Yeah, Computer Man, not as good.
Yeah, right. No, it doesn't have the same swagger.
Yeah, it was funny is like after we did it, we decided not to put it on the record. We were like, it's just not doesn't really fit with the other tunes, and maybe it's just because of the cover, or maybe we're just in our head about it. And
Yeah.
then I heard like 6 or 8 months later, Cake put out a version of that song.
Oh, really? Where was the
Yeah.
vibra slap? That's my favorite part of Cake is there's always a vibra slap
Oh yeah, yeah.
in everything, and it's always they never really happen like on the beat or at the end of a phrase. It's just like this random
Yeah,
vibra
sound
slap
effect.
that happens. Yeah, I kind of
I know
love that.
try to put one on every record somewhere. I don't know if you'll ever be able to hear it, but
Nice,
we try to like
nice.
we got to put that on something. Shit.
Oh man, like now I'm gonna go back and try to find it. I don't want to know. But I'm gonna
Yeah,
go
I
try and
can't
find
remember
it.
right now. Anyway, I don't know if I would be able to remember what it's on.
Yeah,
But
that's hilarious. Next on the record is a tune called "Fire," which is like this huge kind of anthem. Like
yeah,
this just makes you want to like get in the car and just go like 100 miles an hour up PCH and just like it's
yeah,
just kind of I'm all jacked up after I listen to this one. And this was probably the song that I realized, like really realized, that the band could affect me that much. Like
oh
after I
man,
heard
thank you.
Fire, I'm like, oh man, like now I'm in it. Now I'm like I'm all pumped up. I'm like, okay, they got something going on here. Like I can connect with this. So I finished listening to the record and then went back to the beginning and I listened again, like with that in mind. Like I can connect.
Yeah,
Um,
man.
it was really cool. It was really cool. And so this one was a pivotal moment on the record for me.
Dude, that one is self-produced, and I'll tell you the story of like there's 3 tracks on the record that are like this, but it was we were at Warner, and that we've been at Warner in LA forever until our last Greetings from the Neon Frontier record, and then we switched to Warner Brothers in Nashville. And
Mm-hmm.
so we're meeting over there and doing all this shit, and we noticed that studio across the street says Warner Brothers Studios. And we're like, well, why can't we record in here? They got like a Neve board and all, like it's a real deal, big badass studio. And I'm like, well, I'm not sure how much it costs. Like, well, we don't want to borrow money from you to pay you for the studio. So can't we just have it any days that nobody's there? And they let us have
Yeah.
it. And
Oh
so,
wow.
yeah, man. And so we were like kind of like under the disguise of like we're just going to cut demos or something like that. It's not going to cost anything. We'll bring in an engineer and everything. So it was the first time we had free reign of a nice studio, and it turned out really badass. It kind of got our hopes up that we could produce our next record because we feel
Okay.
like okay, we can now. It got our chops up because also Fire. I mean, it went through all kinds of different like variations. Ricky came to the band with that song, and and then we
Now
kept
Ricky's
on.
the guitar player. Who's the
Yeah, the
what's the
acoustic
band
guitar
and
player.
their okay. So Ricky guitar player, Joel on bass. Who else do we got?
Taylor's on electric guitar,
Okay.
and then there's Ben on drums,
Ben on drums.
and Brett is on electric guitar as well. Is the newest
Okay,
guy.
so you got 3 guitars.
Well, at first we were all switching around and have like keys, mandolin. There's all kinds of shit. Like on Fire, I played mandolin, but
Okay.
there's not enough people to play every instrument on the record, really.
Yeah.
And Brett was doing some keys and stuff, and then we kind of just got lazy on the road. It was just like, we don't want to drag all this shit out for a 30-minute
Right.
opening slot or something like that. So then we kind of just went with guitars, bass, and drums
Okay.
and everything. But yeah, it was a real Fire was the first one. It was like yeah, we reworked it, like playing the bass up there at the top and everything. I was like, this is kind of cool, something different, like. And the chorus, we had like major slamming guitars and all this other shit that we took out and put in like the mandolin because actually it's really weird. Sometimes when you stack up guitars and have them all big, it makes the track less rocking.
Yeah,
Like
because like I feel like things don't breathe the same. Like it
yeah,
just
they
creates
don't.
this
You don't
big
get as much
like you just threw a
percussiveness too.
blanket. Yeah. Right. It's just this wall of sound and like um not to like chime in on that phrase how it was used back in the 50s 60s,
Yeah,
but it's just like this huge heaviness kind of, and like I don't feel like the instruments breathe as much when there's a bunch of layering.
yeah, I know, and it's a tough thing because I think in the '90s or the 2000s that was the thing. It's like let's put 5 guitars on this side and 5 on this side or whatever.
Right.
And
Like a
And I'm
firing
like, man,
squad.
why does ACDC sound like this? And they're like, because that's one guitar, one bass, and
Yeah.
one drum, or two, or
Right.
whatever it is.
Yeah.
And there's nowhere to run, or like, never mind. Why does that sound so good?
Right.
So that was like, we ended up taking a whole lot of stuff out and made Fire 10 times more powerful without all those
It
guitars
is,
and
man.
everything.
It's a huge just like anthem type song. Like it's massive.
Oh yeah,
It's
thanks, dude.
amazing. Great tune. The next tune on the record. My first note before, like, I had the title of it and I'm listening to it. The very first thing I wrote down was just like John Lennon fan because it reminded me of Across the Universe. Like that was
Oh,
my
which?
initial Good Night.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Like that was my absolute first, and then I had to hit pause on Good Night, pull up Across the Universe, and like, all right, like that's what it reminded me of. But like, what is it specifically? And I'm like,
Oh
okay,
yeah.
like I get it. There's a vibe. It's not as strong as I initially felt when I heard Good Night, but okay, I understand what happened in my brain there.
Oh
That's a good.
yeah.
That's a good tune.
We Thank you, man. We wrote
Yeah.
that. I had like the just the bones of it, and we were down at a friend of ours in Mexico, down at a friend's wedding, and we're like, well, let's just kind of like let's just kind of knock the edges off of this and clean it up and finish it up. And because a lot of times we don't hardly ever write like love songs. It's always like anti or like she left me or something like that, you
Right.
know. And
Right.
so it was one of our attempts to write that. And then I was like, it's one of those things we had done a lot of like been playing with a lot of country stuff, which I mean, we like country like as in old 97s, Wilco and stuff like that,
Yeah. Yeah. Like kind
more
of
classic
alt
country.
Americana country.
Yeah. But we've been in this other world and we hated it. And so we was like, man, this is like the Beatle thing. Like again, it's just like unapologetic. Like, let's whip out all the stops. Like, let's do the four major to minor thing,
Yeah.
which all the
Exactly. Right.
'60s bands do. They're like, let's
Yeah.
just do it. Fuck it, and so it was kind of like, let's just be simple and be, classic on this
Yeah.
motherfucker. And
Yeah.
even calling it good night. Like, how many songs have been called good night? A million. Same with
Right.
Fire. Like how
Right.
many songs have been called Fire? A
Right.
thousand of them. It's kind of like trying to get, because I think once you've written songs for a long time, you get bogged down like, well, that's been done. Well, that sounds like this. This sounds like that. That blah blah
Right.
blah. And then you see somebody come out with like a song called like My Girl, and you're like, what the hell? You can't call a
Yeah.
song My Girl.
Right. Right. There's already a
So we're
girl. It
trying to
can't be
get,
your girl
yeah,
too.
you're trying to,
Like Temptations already have it.
yeah. What the
Yeah.
hell? It's so like,
Right.
so we're trying to do that thing. We're trying to let go of those kind of things, but it was written in pretty fast, and then just try to pull out of the stops as far as the piano and all that stuff to go on top of it.
And then so you showed up. You showed up with the bulk of material for that one, or that was a collective.
Yeah. Well, me and Ricky wrote that one. I mean, yeah, I had most of that song, but it really didn't. It wasn't a contender. It wasn't a contender for even finishing until we started doing the harmonies on the chorus. I was like,
Okay.
okay, now it's got that wild feather thing that we all do. Now it
Yeah.
can be played. You know?
Okay. Now, to hit pause on going through the song tracks, when writing, because like that's the thing. What you just mentioned is like, no, that's been done. We got to go somewhere else. Like, no, but then that makes then somebody else did that thing, or it sounds too much like this, or it sounds too much like that, and you end up running away from all this pre-recorded music and pre-released music. Then you're probably just gonna tailspin out. So what you guys did of just like, yeah, let's just go into it. Uh, some other group iconic thing, like going into it and just being like, yeah, let's just do it. Let's just do the Beatles thing, for instance.
Yeah.
As
I
an
mean, we don't want
example,
to rip
like
off a song or anything, but
yeah, but I mean, otherwise, you're just gonna go nowhere, right? I mean, so much
yeah,
music has already been released and it's all out there, and you can always hear a song that reminds you of something else. Because even what was it, Blue, which was a cover. Now that I learned, the first time I heard the version of it, the first song I thought of was "When She Talks to Angels" by the Black Crowes.
oh
Like
yeah,
I don't know what it was about. And again, I pulled up the Black Crowes, and I'm like, well, what is it? And I'm like, all right, kind of the same thing. Like there's a vibe. I don't know exactly what happened in my brain to connect the two, but that's the first thing I heard in the back of my mind was the Black Crowes tune. And so like everything on some level is gonna harken back to something else. You know, there's
oh
only so many
yeah. I
chords
mean,
and so many notes and so many tempos. There's gonna be some common information there.
yeah, and you can't help. We kind of like, man, we can't help who you like, and
Right.
you kind of end up sounding like who you like, and that's what we were like, man. The Black Rose sound just like the Faces, man. And
Yeah.
and then like, then the
Yeah.
Faces, who are they ripping off? Like so.
Right.
Yeah, it's a tough. It's definitely because when like we're a band of like massive record collections and different things like that. So
Okay.
it does take a little bit of like convincing everybody. It's like, well, it could be shitty or it could sound like one of the bands we like, you know. so
Right. And I'm assuming
so
that you guys have common interests musically, but are there guys
oh
within the
yeah.
band that are like more like one guy's really into world music, or one guy's super into like old jazz from the '50s, or one guy's really into, or are you guys pretty much really in agreement more often than not
Well,
about?
it's we pretty much have pretty much the same. There's nobody that I think there might be a few people that one guy don't like or something like that, but it's pretty much the classics:
Okay.
Beatles, Zeppelin, Stones, Dylan
Sure.
is a big, and then and Neil Young. Neil Young's
Okay.
probably a very good common denominator because like I think we're struggling with now is being too good. It like like when we were trying to
Yeah.
produce the stuff on those two songs we produced Goodnight too. It's like man, it it's hard to sound like it's hard to be rough and sound like the Stones when you've been in and out and you've made a bunch of records and when you've done
Sure.
studio stuff, and when you're not on heroin, you know,
Yeah.
or whatever.
Right.
So
Well,
it's
scratch
hard to
that.
be
Just
like
tune
this is
up.
how to. It's hard not to it's hard not to tune your guitar, you know.
Sure. You're
it's
right.
it's
Right.
easy to just tune up and say this is great, you know.
So you mentioned the Laurel Canyon sound earlier. How much of that, and like some of those groups that you just spoke of, definitely part of that. Have you guys spent much time? Like, there's no. I'm in Laurel Canyon now. It's not that far from me, and there's no sounds to it anymore. Um,
Yeah,
like there's no music coming out of there. I mean, that I know of. There's no. It's got a history. It does have a feel to it. There's something very specific about that canyon, even in relation to the other canyons in Los Angeles. That canyon does
yeah,
have a very specific feel to it, which is fascinating. I didn't know the term, the Laurel Canyon sound. I don't know if that's a new thing or not. I know that Jacob Dylan just did the documentary a few years ago or something.
yeah.
I watched I watched that. I liked I loved where he was going with it. I did not like him as a host. That's what I think about that documentary.
No, I think that I think they missed a mark on a few of them. I mean, they could have, but they were trying to be a little bit obscure with it. I mean, you can't tell me that the Mamas and Papas were as influential as Christmas, Nash and Young and the Eagles or
Right.
something,
Right.
or some. I mean, you could. I mean, that sounds like uh, record store snobs or something. Like just
Right. Right.
what about this song? It's like, yeah, that's still not as good as this, but um, when we first started the band, we were out there. We were trying to soak that up big time because that's what we were kind of
Okay.
going for. And then, it kind of things like
Did you guys live in the
no,
canyon or
we
live in
we
New
were
York?
living at we were living at Hollywood and Highland. Like I'm telling you, we
Oh
were
man.
watching like fucking we were watching Darth Vader get out of his like
Yeah,
fucking
exactly.
88 Metro
Yeah.
and Spider-Man eating like a dollar cheeseburger on the sidewalk.
Yeah,
That's where
that's
we were.
exactly what it is. Right, it's Batman eating Del Taco. Like that's exactly
Yeah.
what that. Yeah, right. This
So we were there and then
tourist
we were at
intersection.
Hollywood and Vine.
Okay.
Yeah. So we were just in the thick of it down there, staying in a furnished apartment. It was badass time and it was great being there. But
What
I
year was
mean, it
that?
was nowhere. That was 2010
Okay. Okay.
when we first well, that was the Interscope deal because I mean we never got anything paid for like that ever again. And we
Yeah.
got off scot free with the bill, so that was pretty good.
What studios were you at out here?
Well, we were recording with Dave Cobb and he was in Silver
Okay.
Lake. And then we did
Okay.
the two, but none of those records came out. And then I did, or first we were trying to get the record deal. We had a couple demos, Dave, and then we did the ones at Sound City with Dave Cobb, Almost Come Here in Blue. And then we got the deal, and we started with Rob Schnoff, and we we went in and did our 6 songs on the basic tracks at Sunset Sound, which is
Okay.
fucking great.
Yeah.
And then we finished up at Rob Schnoff's place in Eagle Rock, and he
Okay.
did like Elliott Smith and Beck, Melville Gold,
Right.
and the Vines record. I thought the Vines record was great because I know how horrible they are. I was like, if he can make these guys sound good, he can make us sound great. You know?
I'm not too hip
So
to them. Did you go by the
yeah,
it's in Silver Lake, like where Elliott Smith took the record cover in front of that
the
wall with all the colors?
picture, yeah.
and then like that place got bought out a few years ago, like maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and then they kind of took out half of the wall to put a window in,
Oh,
and like
really?
yeah, all the Elliott Smith guys were freaking out about it, and it was a big deal.
Oh shit. Well,
Yeah.
nothing lasts, man. But
No, not at all. Not at all.
but yeah, I like to
That's
soak
cool.
up that. We're trying to do the Laurel Canyon thing because we're songwriters getting together and making some music, and we all kind of play like any instrument laying around, and so we thought that was really good. And you know what? We started that. And what's funny is like about after we got dropped and we were touring around doing stuff, then all of a sudden the Lumineers and Mumford and Sons comes out, and
Ah,
we were like, holy shit, we can't do this acousticy. We were thinking the Wild Feathers are gonna start off doing like, do did do 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 if I haven't been in love before, like the whole just full harmonizing and acousticy
sure,
thing, and then we're like, well, fuck it, let's just plug back in. I'm like, you can't help but write when you got electric guitars, want to be loud and everything else. So
sure.
we just kind of did it all a little bit. I mean, we're kind of all over the place as far as rock goes.
Yeah. Are you guys thinking about production in the writing
Yeah, I mean,
process?
we try not to, but we do. We
Yeah.
try to just let it flow. But then, like you're always like, oh man, then we'll have you come in and sing on this part. I think it's more of the, I don't know, trying to utilize what we got, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Sure.
I think that like what do we why would anybody listen to Wild Feathers? What's different about us than anybody else? And I kind of go back. I kind of like that Beatle thing where it's not only just harmonies, which we're fair at best at. Is it's more like the like kind of like just two parts. Sometimes Keith would be singing like just an octave above somebody or unison, or something like why let's use the vocal thing that we have. And so I know that there's times where we always think about that when we might write a song and then put that in there later when we're doing the band. But a lot of times we're writing, especially if we're writing songs together, we are always kind of in that mode.
Yeah. Okay. Now, with this record slated to be released, are you guys like already writing, or like you got some ideas you're dusting off, or kind of nurturing for another record, or do you guys just like, all right, we're gonna deal with this one. If the world opens it back up again and we're able to tour it, and then we'll deal with another record, or are you always in the creative process,
We're all I think we're
always along the way?
Yeah, I think you're always writing and always doing stuff like that, and even with other people for other things too, because it's Nashville
Okay.
and everything. But there is, I mean, we're always writing. I think after doing those few songs, we did those songs like Fire and Goodnight and My Truth in like October, November of last year. Uh,
Okay.
I think that made us like, okay, I think we can produce our own thing and feel comfortable enough to do it on it, but with all of our best songs, and we usually have like 30 songs to choose from, and then
Okay.
do half of that, and then put 12 on the record and have like three extra or something. So,
Right.
so I think we're about there now, and I think we'll
Okay.
just start whittling it down. But we're trying to think. We've always had awesome studios and awesome things. We're kind of like wanting to do the destination record next, like go off to a cabin, set up a bunch of gear, and
Right.
rent gear, whatever we got to do to get what we need,
Okay.
and do something like that, and really have a big story around it, and you know, just something. I think I love all ways of making records, but that's one way we haven't done yet. So that's what we're thinking
I
we're
think
gonna
that
do
is.
next.
I think it is bound to be translated into music, only because if you're on some like escape somewhere in a forest or something, and like it's just a band in a cabin that you've converted into a studio, the energy is gonna shift. Like no matter how close you
Yeah.
are with guys, like that close of quarters for that amount of time, and everybody on the same focus, that's gonna have a specific energy that you can only get by actually living it. That's what I think.
Yes, and also because we've done things straight to tape, and we've done it straight to the Pro Tools and everything. And it's really just capturing the performance. I used to be a real stickler about all kinds of like, it's not the real deal.
Right.
But nowadays, it's like really, it's about because we've had great recordings and they're not that great of a performance. Like again, they're like just too right on and everything. So that's one thing about it's like capturing a moment. I don't care how it's
Sure.
captured, whether it's a computer, a phone, or what. But trying to get that performance out of somebody, that or man, actually, you know what? I would love to one of these days. I know like Jackson Brown did and Kiss did it too. Like Run on Empty, the record is just the live versions. You know,
Yeah.
it's like there's
Yeah.
no studio version of Run on Empty, and so
Right.
that could be in our future too. It's like let's rehearse all these songs, take it on the road, and record them for a month, and then come back and we'll put out the record of all the best performances of all these new songs.
Yeah, I'm always a big fan of that because kind of having the majority of my background be as a jazz musician, I'm all about the idea of this happened at one day, one time, in one place that can never be duplicated. Like it's the music. I think, and I do think all music is in the moment. Um, to varying degrees. Like obviously jazz with the improvisation, cool. There's more room for it. Um, but I
Oh,
think
I have to tell you, I did play in jazz band in high school, and I played
okay,
bass for one semester, and
okay.
uh, and I was
How'd that go?
and I was horrible at it. I mean, I played jazz guitar for like 2 or 3
Okay.
years, and the last year we didn't have a bass player, or bass player graduated or whatever, and so I took over on bass, and it
Yeah.
was an upright bass,
Move. So
and it
you
was
went from playing guitar with no, and now you had played a little electric bass at this point, or do you just get thrown in the deep end right to upright?
did I what?
Did you get thrown right into the deep end on upright, or had you played electric? Like you already knew the bass, or
Oh,
did you go
I'd
right from
played
guitar to
electric before,
upright?
and I'd played
Okay.
electric in like that church camp with some buddies, but I had never
Right.
played upright, and it was pretty rough. It was real rough.
Sure.
Yeah, it was a learning experience, and it's just like it wasn't for me. I mean, every now and then I'll, if we could play something easy, I could play. Do you play upright?
Yeah.
Dude, congratulations.
Thanks.
And what's rough around here, man, there's a lot of great upright. I mean, kind of like rockabilly type dudes, and
Yeah.
there's people that like stand up on their thing and spin it around and everything.
Sure.
Yeah. So I would hate to get up in Nashville with an upright bass. They would spot me
Yeah.
from a mile away as a poser.
But cool. So moving through the record, you did mention one of the tunes. The next song, "After Good Night," is the song "My Truth," which is kind of like a pop country track.
Yeah,
That was kind of
we
my takeaway on
co-wrote
it.
that with this dude. It was a co-wrote, and we had recorded it. Our old management, we had written it, never thought about it, and they were
Okay.
like, "Guys, this song's great. We got to do it." And so I was like, "All right, fuck it," you know.
Yeah.
And it
Okay.
seems so easy like that. I think we knocked it out in like an hour, and already had the
Oh man.
stuff set up. It was kind of like the last track we did, and still, I've sent the record to some of my relatives and some of the other guys. Like, oh, we love that. It's like the exact demographic you would expect to love that. Loves that. So, loves
Right.
that
Right.
song. It's kind of one of those songs we thought was like this might be a hit and we'll hate it forever.
Yeah.
One
Well.
of those.
Well. It
But
did its job though.
but yeah, man, it's a good recording. Yeah, we write twice as many songs as we do anyway, so it was a good recording. We decided to put it on there.
Sure. Moving down the track listing. The next one is "To Be Gone." What's the story there?
To Be Gone, our second record. That was off our second record. That didn't make the record, and I think we just threw a lot of weird stuff in there. It's got a lot of weird like sound effects and a lot of like
Yeah.
I don't know. Our whole second record is kind of like that because we're like,
Okay.
man, we don't want to be known as the Americana band, and we have put all kinds of different. That and the next song after that, "Lose Yourself," was those two were like, in that vein of like, let's be weird, let's
Sure.
have, not conventional or regular shit, and
Right.
we dig we dig it. It didn't hold up compared to the other ones.
Okay.
It didn't flow with it.
Yeah. Then the next two songs on the record you've actually kind of spoke to. The next one is "Lose Yourself," which you just referenced.
Yeah, that's
"Guitar
the
Man"
same mode.
is after that, which is the
Yeah.
cover. Then we have "After the Bottle's Gone," which is the last track. There's 11 tracks on the record, and this is track 11. And that one just felt like it was recorded in a bar, was it? I mean, was it straight up
Yeah.
live recording?
No, well, it's us doing it live. I think there was 2 takes put on top of each other, which just sounds so
Okay.
weird. But it is live. But it was done for the last record, and then
Yeah.
we had uh, I'd had that idea forever, and we decided to do it uh, just because it was kind of like that. Like, this is like, if you guys want country, this is country, motherfuckers.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they didn't. Nobody really liked it, but
Okay.
we thought it was kind of, that was one of those things we were talking about, trying not to be good,
Okay.
trying to
Right.
have a little bit of funkiness and a little bit of roughness and all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. And then it didn't really, we could have done it like a straight up Midland song or something, like
Right.
done it like kind of Brooks and Dunn and really produced it up. But we probably shot ourselves in the foot. Probably shot ourselves in the foot trying to do it like the Stones. But
No, it was cool. I
but
was into it.
it's kind of like it just seems like this is country, but nobody else really thought that.
And what I liked about it specifically in context of this collection of songs is because you have songs like Fire, and then you have songs like After the Bottle's Gone, and they're two very different feels. So it's the same band, and uh, but it's covering a lot of like kind of not just emotional content, but just sonic feeling content.
Oh, thanks, man. That I think that, if anybody who's like new our collection, like, it's kind of like a fan thing. If the beginning, it kind of goes in chronological order, you know, uh,
Okay, I was gonna ask
except for
about
the
that.
three,
Yeah.
except for the ones in the middle.
Okay.
Because except for we put the 3 in the middle just because we had recorded them and we just wanted to put them out. But it kind of goes in that kind of the arc of the band. Here's the history, the first 10-year history of the band, kind of in chronological order, and kind of putting a bow on that first 10 years of our career. And
Yeah.
that's why it's kind of all over the place. But that's kind of like where the band, each record, each of our, we have 3 records out, and then we have a live from the Ryman record. But we each one of them has a different sound, and we are always really hard on that. Like, oh, it needs to have like this certain vibe of the whole record and all this different stuff. And so
Yeah.
this one's kind of like, since it's a compilation thing, it's kind of like that, the beginning to the end, all the B-sides, like, you know, accompanied to the other records. You
And
can see,
what's the
oh, those To Be Gone and Lose Yourself. I could see how those would have been on the second record because that was their psychedelic record, you know?
right?
And
And
so,
what's the
yeah, it kind
feeling
of
in the
explains it.
band about This Is Your Life record and creating this display of the history of the band? Like, is it a cathartic experience? Like, is the band kind of, is that a bit of a purging of the past, and like you're really to hit the next one with some new, fresh? We've left everything behind
Yeah.
us, and now we're going to get into some new, uncharted waters.
Yeah, I think I think it's perfect, perfect saying like the purge it out thing. Because this is pretty much our time span of being on major label, and all the leftover songs from that, so we can get rid of them and don't have to worry about like, man, remember that song? We should put that on the new record and stuff like that.
Right, right.
It's like there's always those ones that linger along. I mean, there's still a boatload of those songs in the background, but
Sure.
not recorded well.
Okay.
Um, I mean, I have a little studio here, and we have thousands of songs that are recorded and everything, but not like to a great quality like this, or decent quality like the other ones
Yeah.
were. So yeah, I think everybody's really happy to kind of like just close the book on that, on
Cool.
and get
That's a
them get
good
them over
feeling.
with. Yeah, and I think the next one, and also I think that everything's pretty. We get a lot of stuff like, oh man, your records are never as good as you guys are live, and all that other stuff, and so I think that's what this next record that we're gonna do is gonna be more that mode, or you know,
Cool.
uh, yeah. You a Black Crowes fan at all?
I am. I am.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like that record they did at Levon's Cabin. Uh,
Okay. Yeah.
they did that, and it was like kind of live in front of an audience, double record, and it was kind of like, I mean, just basic, like, here's us playing our instruments type thing, and we get too excited in the studio, like, oh man, we should put a glockenspiel on it, or
Right.
something,
Right. Yeah. Where's the
or like,
viper
look what
slap?
they
Where's the
have here.
viper slap?
Yeah, yeah, 1,000 fiber slap.
Yeah, yeah.
But
Like,
so yeah, we would like. I think this next time it's going to be a little bit more limited. You know, uh, going with which we haven't really done yet.
okay,
But yeah, just trying to explore everything you do. Like trying to really soak up being in a band. There's not a whole lot of fucking bands around anymore. It's
man.
uh, it's it's kind of a dying thing, but it is just a time and place. Yeah, in Nashville, everybody's like, well, best song wins no matter what. Best song wins. You always hear
Sure.
that, which I think is total bullshit because otherwise, otherwise, Old Crow would have had a fucking smash hit with Wagon Wheel, but they didn't.
Right.
No, it took
Right.
Darius Rucker to do it.
Yeah.
That's the same
Right.
song. And then also we were talking about like one of the bands that we always try to emulate is the band.
Okay.
And so like if one guy sits here and plays the weight for you, and you don't hear the and put the load up,
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
then then somebody's gonna be like, oh man, you have like 6 verses and they're all the same, and you don't even move off the chord progression. Like, you know, then there's gonna be a lot of criticism towards it. But the performance
Sure.
of that is, I mean, it's obviously takes a great song, but it takes a great performance and it takes the right time and place. And so I always thought that, like, man, bands come and go and they break up and all this stuff. When you see a band, like, man, I saw them with their original lineup and I saw them with this, it's a special thing. And I always
It
love that,
is.
you know?
Yeah. I agree, and I'm with you on that the performance of the song is just as much as the song as the actual content of the song. And I
Yeah.
think that some people, I was having this conversation just with a friend not too long ago. Um, like we were talking about Joe Cocker and like how Joe Cocker like really didn't write anything, but he would just crush other people's stuff better than them.
Oh, yeah.
Specifically the Beatles. Like he outsang the Beatles on "Help with My Friends." Like Joe
Oh,
Cocker
yeah.
to me is
And
the
I think he put out
quintessential
something
version of that
before
song.
they did.
Oh,
Yeah,
really?
that's a iconic. Yeah, it's iconic. And, you know, uh, yeah, that's. I mean, the with a little help, my friends is just couldn't get any better.
Like
And
it's a good tune when the Beatles do it. Like it's a good tune, but when Joe Cocker does it, it's a great tune. And my point for bringing this up is there's relevance to the performance and the
yeah,
interpretation of the song because he put it in a new time signature. He did a whole thing and added a ton of just raw energy to it, which he did all the time. That was just Joe Cocker, but the performance
yeah,
definitely has something, and I don't think the song by itself, even with the Beatles who changed the world, um, I'll probably get emails from like diehard Beatles guys, but I don't think that the song by itself with the Beatles was as strong as it was with Joe Cocker.
no, definitely not. Yeah, and they, you know what, Joe Cocker was like. I mean, the Beatles were Joe Cocker's like they were his biggest fans, pretty much.
Yeah.
And and I'm from Tulsa, so like Leon Russell would put all that stuff together, and the Mad
Mm-hmm.
Dogs and Englishman thing. It's just
Right.
that's a special thing, and
Yeah.
doesn't have a whole lot to do with writing. It has a lot to do with jamming and playing and everything. Like that's just really cool. It's just fucking
Yeah.
awesome.
So I'm right there with you, man. I think it is definitely a band thing, and I think it's everybody really committing with their lot of the stage. Whatever instrument they're doing, whatever they're singing, bass, guitar, dobro, whatever they're up to, like commit, go all in, because
Yeah,
it's a big
man.
responsibility within any band. Like there's only one. Do it. Like it's all on you.
Yeah, and I'm fortunate. I'm really fortunate to have songwriters in the band that it's just not like you know any of our old band or our old bands we have to do everything.
Yeah.
It really gets me a chance to focus on bass. Uh, Opposed to if I write a song, then we'll do it and I have to figure out the bass afterwards or whatever. But if
Yeah.
somebody
Yeah.
comes in with a song, I can really like, well, how do I McCartney this and make this a sweet part on its own? And
Sure.
like, and that kind of thing. I hope I'm not cussing too much on this thing. You,
No, that's fine.
can you on here?
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. Go
but
for it.
yeah, and you know what? Also, yeah, like a, another thing I had to when I first started playing too was I had to like relax. I mean, smoke pot or whatever I had to do to because I would be so far ahead of the beat and so like
Mm,
jacked up and excited about it. I had to
yeah.
consciously try to lay back That was like a
Sure.
big problem when I first started playing with the band.
Same.
But a major hurdle for me because,
Yeah.
and you don't ever realize it till you go back and you listen to it, a recording. You're like, my
Sure.
God, I'm way ahead. Lost the pocket.
Excuse me. Yeah,
No
exactly.
problem.
Like when you play it, you don't think it's there until you hear it back and you're like, oh, what? That's where I put that note? Like, it
Yeah.
didn't feel like that when I played it in real time.
Yeah.
That's always a sobering experience. So remind me again when the record's coming out, November 20th,
November 20th. Yeah, man.
and
It's a little kind of a blast in the
Spotify.
past. It'll be
Spotify.
on
What
all
else is it
those.
gonna
Yeah,
be?
Spotify, iTunes.
Dude, thanks so much for spending the time. This has been great, and
Dude,
thank you for
thank you so
releasing
much for having me.
such the wealth of music that the Wildflowers has put out. Feathers, not flowers. Feathers. Do you get that a lot? Do you get that a lot?
We had before, we were playing a show out in California last year, and this radio DJ, got on, he's like, he must have thought we were a different band. He goes like, ladies and gentlemen, these guys are local and they blah, 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 all these different facts that had nothing to do with this. He's like, the
Completely
Wild
wrong.
Turkeys. And we're like, like, we looked around, was like, we are playing, aren't we? Did they book the wrong band?
Yeah,
What the hell?
right.
And then we cussed out the guy when he got off stage, and then he got sorry about that. It's a different band from Nashville called the Wild Feathers.
Yeah.
But no. But if they ever got us confused for Wildflowers, the Tom Petty album, I would be, I'd be happy about that.
look forward to the record being out and everybody checking it out, dude. Thanks again for spending the time. Appreciate it.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, dude.
Take care, Joel.
See ya.
If you have enjoyed this episode and you're interested to know what else is happening with the Bass Shed, you can find me on Facebook /The Bass Shed, Instagram @The Bass Shed, Twitter @Bass Shed. All right, so that was my talk with Joel. I'm definitely excited to see what happens with where the band goes from here. After going through this process of purging a lot of songs that were related to the history of the band, I'm really interested to see where the band goes when they kind of just hit this next record, with a clean slate, so to speak, and yeah, that's gonna be exciting to me. I always really like following the trajectory of artists because it's a story that listeners go on with them, and that's fascinating to me. That's fascinating. I like being a part of the story as a listener. And I think this record does a great job of just, really creating a bit of a scrapbook of that history for the Wild Feathers. And I'm really excited to see what happens with where they go from here. That's interesting. So again, the record is Medium Rarities. You can find that on the different platforms where you find music. I'm sure it's going to be all those places. Yeah, thanks again to Joel for taking the time, and that's what I got, folks. That's all I got. I will catch you on the next one in a minute.